Justice Department is having antitrust lawsuit against Google. When lawsuits like this happen, a lot of private documents and emails become public. One of the things we learned is that Google is paying Apple $20 billion to stay as default search engine on iPhone. Now, if you are into tech, think about all the arguments you might have had among your friends on iPhone versus Android. You might have said Android is better, your friends must have said iPhone is better. Little did we know that Google and Apple have one of the best business relationship between each other. Google Search is the default search engine on iPhone. Google paid Apple $20 billion in 2022 to be default search engine. This is crazy. That's $20 billion payment is 17.5% of Apple's total operating profit. The innocent looking Safari browser on your iPhone is single-handedly responsible for pulling in $20 billion for Apple. 80% of iPhone search queries pass through Safari browser. Wow, that's unimaginable. It looks like revenue share split between Apple and Google is 40 to 60%. Apple keeps 40% and Google keeps 60%. So Google must make $50 billion from iPhone users and gives $20 billion out of the $50 billion to Apple. Another reason why Google pays this money to Apple is to prevent Apple from developing its own search engine. Now, if you are Apple and you get $20 billion just like that, why would you waste time and effort in developing your own search engine? It almost feels like Google is paying Apple to stay away from making their own search engine. This payment also ensures that Microsoft Bing, which is Google's competitor, doesn't get to become default search engine on iPhone. Satya Nadella has tried to convince Apple to switch default search on iPhone from Google to Bing. He also offered to give 90% of search revenue back to Apple, but has been unable to convince Apple. Whomever Apple chooses as default search on iPhone will become the king, says Mr. Nadella. This makes one wonder how powerful iPhone is as a device. It can break Google just by changing the default. But Apple will not because unbelievable amount of money is involved. So moral of the story is that in business and politics, there are no such thing as permanent friends or enemies. All of us who spend hours arguing with our friends about iPhone versus Android now look like idiots when we realize that both Google and Apple have one of the best and most successful business relationship ever in the history of Silicon Valley.